Okay, very good morning to all of you. Let's start today's session. I would like to consider this as a kind of discussion because all the recording things I have uploaded, but good to have the discussion because then you will be able to understand the things more clearly. As I explained to you earlier, Dr. Tilina will talk about the UX side mostly, and I will talk about the UI side, interaction design, technically. And today, my plan is to discuss on the how the human factors are affecting for the interaction design. So that's an important thing. So thinking I uploaded on the course page the discussion of the interaction design which we had last time, and so today I'll move to this section. Next one, human factors, understanding the human user, and then probably there is another quiz I will activate after the discussion. You are also welcome to post any question here and discuss among your friends and openly. And the recordings are linked here, so anytime you can watch, or otherwise if you can manage with the slides, then quite okay. So there is for these sections, there is it's a descriptive slide, so I usually write it for this one, understanding the human user, that is the topic. Then let's start with this one. What are these things? So I would like the participation of the people. So not simply just saying what I know. I mean, I don't want to conduct this session as just another lecture, but to interactive dialogue with all of you. Let's start human user. Okay, human user for the interaction design, what we call the outcome will be the interface, as I mentioned. There are several outcomes that what we expect. One thing is understand or recognize what we say, that is human communication through different channels that what we have, and how that important for the interaction design. So you will see in this section, what are these channels, the communication, these channels. I mean, the channel mean, for example, I is in a channel. Okay, so visual things, visual communication happens through I, and definitely that is the most important component for the interaction. Then it comes with the next one, how information stored and processed in the human memory. Is that important? Technically, if a person wants to interact with the system, he should have some understanding. Understanding comes with what he can remember. Okay, so human memory, personal memory, it's something that is very important. Then thinking process. I mean, that is the process inside the brain, and which actually determines the interaction steps to solve the problem. So that is another thing I could have some discussion. Analyze the user population with respect to the different their abilities and characteristics. So why you wanted to analyze the people? Now, if we carefully, and that the main reason to analyze them, because different people have different capabilities and they may interact in a different way, and you need to have that good understanding, because then only good interactions can be designed. Because if we try to develop something considering the one or few people, that's not good. So when we wanted to analyze the people and what we call the user study sometimes, and then having that good understanding is better. Most of the time we identify what type of a user group is that one, because then that will help us to do it. Later, you see there are two things we talked about, what is called the homogeneous users and the heterogeneous users. Homogeneous users means the people, all the people who are in a kind of the same standard, same level when we consider for interaction design. Now we can consider the group of students in this class is a kind of a homogeneous group because they are following the same degree program. Most of them, although they may have a different background in this context. So considering the online learning environment, VLE, PGVLE, so it's in a one group of students we can consider as a homogeneous group. But if you carefully analyze, you will see lots of differences among them. Then you will be able to identify subgroups. So if there are so many different subgroups, that's not a good thing because the system may not be, will have to cater for all these users. So if you can remember, there was two terms we defined in the previous section called the customization and the personalization. So what is a customization? We say customize for someone's particular requirement. I mean, some group of people. Most probably when you go for the if you wanted to buy some garment from a shop, and most probably they ask first question is what is the size. So based on the size of the thing, they have a different, I mean, they may have different ways of classifying the size, small, medium, large is in a one way. So it's a customized to that kind of a particular group of users based on the physical size. So here the customization may be different. So personalization means modifying something for a specific use. It's something like if you want to go to a tailor shop to get some dress done, then they probably measure your size and they will prepare. So personalization, it's a more advanced customization where they consider only one specific user. So explain the human capabilities and limitations that have a direct impact on the interface design. So those are some of the high level things that we expect. So there are some more content, and hope you may have gotten a chance to go through. So we will have some discussion with them, and there are 5 sections also. The first one about these channels and how they process data. And the next one about the human memory management. Third one about the thinking process and the problem solving. And then we talked about the errors, human errors. And the very important thing, everyone makes that errors. So how that error affects for the interaction design. So what are the types of errors? I mean, when the people engage in the interaction design and how they use it. Then it comes the types of users. So the types of users are kind of how do you classify, what are the basics, and that's the last section. We will have a more discussion on that later, but that's the line, kind of the main line of the course in this section. So let's discuss with the first one. Okay, when we come to the human users, I mean their capacity to process information. Okay, may vary from one person to another person. If you consider the group of people, you can classify from different ways. I mean, the one way is to classify whether they are male or female. The other way to classify depending on their physical size or their maybe age group, and different ways. So why we want to classify? Most of the time, people wanted to identify their different capabilities. So then you can design the system for that. And just very hard to looking at their profile to classify. And some people do a kind of carry out a questionnaire at the beginning to identify the different groups. So this is known as a user survey. I hope some of you may have heard about this. And user survey could be carried out at very beginning. The main objective is to, if you wanted to identify and classify them to different groups based on the some defined set of objectives. So user survey, before conducting, you have to identify what are the things that you wanted to identify as how you are going to classify. And based on that, you may develop a questionnaire. Okay, and this is in a kind of a preliminary exercise lots of people do before they do the system design. So my suggestion is, now if you are doing a project, you will have to do it in the second year. Think about a user survey in the part of your requirement gathering, because that will help you to say some more things about the in your dissertation about it. At the same time, then another thing is user survey will have a kind of an impact on what you are going to do. There is a general term, it says, first you have to know the people before you develop a system for them. Okay, so without knowing the people or the users here, developing in a system is difficult. Interaction design is difficult. So that part you will have to keep in mind, and you'll have to start working on that. Any question about it? Okay, anything that you would like to ask about the user survey? Have you done a user survey for something in your part of your undergraduate work or some other work? Can you raise your hand? At least I can see. Anyone? Okay, one person has done. Okay. Only one person has done. That's good. So user surveys, if you just, okay too. If you search on the internet, you can find out how user survey can be carried out. There must be some objectives you have to define. And these days, if it is an online thing, people can carry out an online service to gather the data. There are lots of tools available on the net to do this kind of service. Okay. Then if I move to the next one, understand the user. So these terms, what are these four terms? Visual, auditory, haptic, movement. They are in some way the kind of human behavior. Okay, visual. Okay, the people can see visual things. So human behavior is based on the visual input that they get. Auditory input, haptic. I mean, that is when the people touch something, and the movement, the physical movement. Okay, and these are the input-output channels. Okay, they are very, very important in the interaction design. And also, information, we'll discuss more details, are stored. The result, if some information may result when these behaviors takes place with respect to the human user. So those things are stored in their mind in the different forms. So we'll discuss the details later, but they are here. So the reasoning, problem solving, skill, error are some of the things that you will see as an outcome of that interaction. Okay. I mean, in a very abstract way, if you look at the people's behavior, those are the few things. Now I am going to ask, there are several channels. Visual comes at the sight of the hearing, touch, taste, smell. Among them, which one is the most strongest mode of a communication for the interaction? So you can tell, or at least you can put in the chat box. Auditory. Okay. One person said auditory. Any other suggestions? What is the most strongest one which requires for the interaction design? Visual. Okay. Other person said visual. Now you have two things. Okay. Another person said visual. So now we have 2 votes for it. So thank you for the feedback. I think it's the visual is the most. I mean, that is, we do lots of things when we see something. So the visual input matters a lot. Okay. Most of the interaction depends on that. I mean, this is one of the biggest issue the blind people face. They can't see, but they can hear. Okay. But what about a person who can see only, who can't hear? He's also a limited person. He may not be able to understand many things. Deaf people, for example, they can't hear, but they can see. The blind people, they can hear, but they can't see. So the most important thing, visual is the highest, auditory is the second, but they both goes together. Okay, very strongly. Haptic is the touch. I think is the we may not consider, but that's also very, very important channel for the communication. Okay, if you don't have it, then people face a lots of problem. I mean, sometimes, okay, this haptic thing matters a lot. For example, how do you type on a keyboard? And you can type only if you feel that your fingers are touching on the keyboard. Suppose due to something, if a person can't get the feeling on the finger, that affects badly. What do you think about taste and smell with respect to the interaction design? Any suggestion, anyone? I'm very happy to hear someone says, have you seen anything, or what is your opinion on this topic? And now looking at the interaction design, so how taste and smell affects the interaction design. Anyone willing to say something? Are they important for the interaction design?
So the smell and taste is has a close connection with the memory.
Smell and taste will have a close connection with the memory. Yes, you are correct. Now, Now, when we say the taste, it's something very, very sensitive thing. Okay, but it's when it comes with the interaction with the system, I mean, it is the one that least used in the real context. I mean, we don't, I mean, the taste is only the one usually comes when we take some food, okay? And that kind of a requirement, but the interacting with something else is the taste is the least used. And smell, it's more than that now. For example, smell will trigger some things in a particular place, okay, and a particular context. Now, for example, there was in a very nice application I remember. Now, suppose if you when you are browsing on the web, you can browse any place. Suppose you got an URL about a particular jungle. Then when you browse through the jungle, there may be some photos, suppose that you browse. But you know, when you move through a jungle, there may be a different smell that you will get. Even when you go, I mean, a photo doesn't show the smell. Photo only shows the visual thing. And also the auditory thing it doesn't give, but you can integrate. So this particular prototype application shows how someone browse a collection of photographs taken in a jungle where you see the audio, you hear the audio, and also you smell the moment. So it's what they have done. They use some chemical approach. They artificially create the smell at the moment when someone opened that picture. So there is a separate device attached to the computer. So it creates a smell. So it's an artificially create that one, and the people can feel that smell. So this is a kind of a small thing I remember, but there are so many other prototype application people develop to take them, but not for the common use of application. So the taste is also there are a very interesting way people have taken. If you have a time, I just like to give a small link I will share with you later. The last year we had a conference, you may remember ICTA conference, usually have it at the UCSC, and we invite some expert people to come and give a keynote speeches, and there was one keynote speech about the how the taste and smell is used in the human computer interaction and the interaction design. I'll share with you the URL some later after that one. But even if you go for the ICTA conference last year, you will see one of the keynote speech where a professor from Japan who presented his R&D work on the use of a taste and smell from the human computer interaction. So very interesting area. So very innovative things people can really work on that. Yeah, it is not much affected, but for the certain application, it matters. Yes, you're correct. Thank you. So, so this is the input side I was talking about, okay? Input channels, I mean, coming into the person. Output is the, where when the people speaking, okay, auditory body. Later, there isn't a question, I mean, you may come across, if someone asks a question, which one is faster when a person reacting, visual or auditory? Visual or auditory, which one is faster? Any
Visual.
idea? Visual. Okay, one answer is visual. Any other? Lots of people say visual. Okay, good. But reality is other way, auditory. You see in the even in these slides as later I have put some more details. The reason is this. I mean, this has been measured. When someone see a particular thing, he needs a time. Now you know that why we ask people to keep a minimum distance between the two vehicles, because if you see the front car is braking, the person will see that thing, and then immediately, I mean, then when you see the front car is braking, that means the red lights you can see. So the moment you see the red light, so then you start trying to brake the car and reduce the speed or stop the vehicle. It's like that. So then the minimum distance is the where moment if you see you have enough time to stop it. Now in the highway, the biggest problem is if you don't maintain the minimum speed, if you don't maintain the minimum distance between two vehicles, and if the front vehicle make a sudden brake, that could lead to a definite accident. So many accidents happens because of that, and so it takes a time. I mean, it takes a time. Moment the person see the red light, the reaction takes some time. So the reaction time, it's more than when you hear something. Okay, when you hear something, you have a kind of a faster reaction than that one. One of the reasons why there is car navigation systems have an audio thing is, I mean, when someone see and get an idea, if a person gets the audio input, it will be faster. And the haptic, I mean, the faster than other two. So the speed of interaction vary from these three things. Okay? So just keep it in mind. That's a good thing that I can put it in the question as a one. And there are so many evidences for it. One, it was an approved, and later you will see. But the reaction speed is faster. And always say, if you really wanted to know, sometimes why you wanted to put in some, why we call it alarm. If you want to alert someone, better not only through the visual, even you put on a bell or some sound is attached to that one, the person will quickly get the attention. It's a faster. So faster than the visual approach. So hope that important matter that you really need to keep in mind. Okay. Then if I move to the other thing, active channel communicate state, the sight, hearing, touch, taste, smell. So hope you can go through some of the things. And this is about the input output. I mean, you may remember in the small exercise for the kids, usually they were asked to describe a computer as a human being. Or a human being could be described as a computer. So what is the comparative thing for the mouth and the eyes and the memory and the brain and so many things. So you can see. But the interesting thing, output of the machine become an input of the man. That is the relationship how you built in it. So storing methods, power, so human capabilities, okay. It's a varying factor. Now, this is kind of a big issue now. If you take it in a machine, if you have the same specification, all the machines most probably will be on the same model, same speed, everything. But if you take the two people with close specification, I would say their age, all the background, but there is no guarantee that their capabilities are equal. So definitely, and also the capability is a fluctuating thing. It's not the same. It depends on the time. And for example, emotional influence affects the capability. If you are angry, your capabilities are different. If you are sleepy, Your capabilities are different. Skill and error is also matters a lot. It varies. I mean, some people may have a better skill to do it. Some people may not, and very difficult to say why. I mean, having the same knowledge or background, but the skill of doing it depends on the way how the reaction comes. And error is also it's something that affects. So each person is different. Okay, you have a very specific model, but this model is also varied. That is the later what you see, because it's not going to be forever. The people vary. Okay, I also wanted to talk about eye. I mean, this is I'm not going to do a physics exercise. I hope that even when you're doing O level, you have learned about this diagram. Okay, eye and what are the components in eye. So I just put that one to make you recall that back and to see it. So what we see is through eye. But we may see the same thing, but we may understand the different thing. I mean, suppose two of you will see the same thing, same object, but they may react or they may get to know that one in a different way. The understanding, it's based on the background and the other factors. What you see is the input that comes through that one. Again, that input have several issues. Among them, this visual thing people are, when we talked about the interaction, size, depth. Okay, how do you see something is big, bigger than that? And another thing is we say this is close to one, or if you look at the two objects, okay, probably in your room at the moment, if you looked around, there may be so many objects, I guess. And most probably, you know, which are the things closer to you, which are the things behind those things. Okay. I mean, then you understand the distance you can measure through where you see things. So how this happens, I mean, this is a small science lesson where people have learned this size and depth is an understanding. So if the people don't understand that one properly, there will be some eye problem. And this so-called thing called the visual angle. Okay, I hope you may remember. So the good thing is big things sometimes you will see as a small thing. Now let's, for example, a mountain, very big. Okay, Sripada, you can see sometimes in the morning in some places far away. How? Because if you can see that one, you can see as a small mountain. So especially in a mountain, when you go and when you see the thing in the far away, you see a small thing. But definitely you know that it's a big one. So most probably, so when we see something, the visual angle doesn't describes everything. Visual angle help. If you see that one, you will say it. And at the same time, there may be other factors associated with that object, which you use to interpret and understand. Okay. So what you see depends on the visual angle, but you understand depend on the other factors. Yeah. So visual acuity. Okay. I have another question. What do you see here? What do you see on this page? What do you see here? What do you interpret about these letters? There are some A, B, C, D up to K. So when you looked at what feelings comes to your mind?
So G is replaced with the dot.
G is replaced with a dot. Mhm. Okay. Then, yeah, so the letters wise, you see that one. That's good. Yes, you are correct. But any feeling that you get when you look at these letters? Yeah, do you get it? Hmm? Now, for example, now if you think about A and B, what is the difference?
The
C,
size.
they are, now for example, if you think here, size have become gradually low. Yes, that's what you get your feeling. Okay, but in order to do that one, you see this one, they are visual acuity. I mean, this is very highlighted. Okay, and then this one is low, this one is low, like that. When you place like that, again you have made it smaller. The letter B is smaller than A, and the C and D. So this is we definitely know this is a 2D plane. But when we have changed the size of the letters and their the brightness here, then it shows these letters are arranged in a way where this one is the front. Okay, this is behind. This is a little bit. And also look at the spacing. So the feeling people will get, I mean, if you carefully put it that one, so these letters is like that, and this goes in a far away. And when it becomes a too small, then you may see like a dot. And again, you can see this is coming in a front. So what we have done, we have created a visual arrangement of these letters, and that has created a kind of a appearance, a different special appearance, which will help. Okay, so overlapping help the perception of the size and the depth. Yeah. Yes. So that's the kind of a thing that how visual acuity can be used to change the size and the depth can be created on a 2D plane. So this is very important when we design an interface, especially, I mean, what we call the 2D interface. If you want to develop some interaction, this kind of a technique people can use to create a good appearance. Then, when it comes to this one, I mean, the next factor about the brightness. This is visual acuity. Visual acuity is perceive the detail limited. Family objects perceive at the constant size overlapping. Okay, here. Brightness. Brightness means what? Brightness. Some objects are very bright, some other objects are not very bright. Am I correct? When I say an object is not very bright, what does it mean? I mean, if you have learned the physics, you may know. Okay. For example, in a night time when all the lights are off, can you see the objects? No, because no light is coming out of them. Am I correct? Then what really happens, the light falls on a particular object, it reflects. This reflection is the something that results you to see the object. I mean, that's why we say, I mean, we in the night, we can't see anything because there is no light, no reflection. But then some objects, you will see the level of reflection is higher. In some surfaces, the light is absorbed. And this brightness is resulted of this particular situation. I mean, carefully if you looked at the way how the brightness is defined is there. So the lots of some objects are very bright, even if you think about let's say the gem, okay, and some even if you look at the gold, this is and the silver, gold, iron, all these metal things, and if you compare them, they have a different brightness. In some objects, even a small light will be reflected. And for some others, it's not the case. They will absorb. The color also have this varying levels of the brightness. And again, it's the way things happen. So you will see some of the way how these things are very, very important when you design an interface. Okay, when the color combinations matters a lot. So I'm not going to talk about everything. But what I wanted to say now, this is not like where we say everything, but wanted to ask you, whenever do you need to have a good understanding about the colors as well as the brightness. The brightness comes with the light, the amount of the reflection. Okay, and there is some more things about the color on the next page. Okay, so how the color is built? The color is built with the combination of the other colors. Okay, as you can see, I mean there are basic colors. Okay, so when all the basic colors are combined, what is the color? This is a very IQ question. White. Yes, white means when you put all colors together, it is a white. What is a black? Black means what? Anyone can answer? What is a black? Black means no color. Okay. Absence of all the colors, it is known as a black. But color palette, you will see the kind of a range where if you mix the colors in a different way. So in a computer generated environment, now people talked about earlier stage, people started with 3 colors and then they expanded to the different combinations. Okay. And even the millions of the colors could be combined and identified. So red, blue, yellow as the basic colors. Yes, you are correct. And then, but this combination, okay, is there. So I'm not going into that lesson, but what I wanted to tell you, these are the basic things, the you have to know about the color things whenever we design an interface. Okay, a proper combination of the colors also matters. And the human factors are also important. What does this statement says? 80% of the males are colorblind. 1% of the females are colorblind. So who are good? So they are lucky, and they are good in shopping. But males are fortunate on the other hand because they don't want to see everything. So anyway, this is another factor that I just want. I mean, in general, doesn't mean that this is common for every person, but I mean, as a group, when you analyze, this is what the statistically people have identified relationship. So it means that even every group, okay, have a different ratio. The color blind means what? Okay, color blind means what? Sorry, I forgot to ask that one. What does a color blind mean? I mean, if you have done the eye test, probably you have heard that one. What is a color blind? General IQ questions, these things are. So I'm not going in details, but color blind means what? Cannot identify the correct colors. Yeah. Yes, that's right to some extent. I mean, that you fail to recognize the color properly. And that is simply because of some problem in the eye. Okay. You may recognize the color in the wrong colors. Okay. So that is what we call the color blind. So what you see and what you understand, they will be different. Okay. So most of the time, what you understand may be different from what is the reality. So keep in mind that that also could happen. So in the interface design, how it will be happen? I mean, sometimes the people may develop or design an interface considering some factors, but the users may understand it in a different way. So, I mean, this is where the evaluation is very important. You should not take a decision just by looking at the way how you have done. You always have to talk to the users and ask them to provide enough feedback. And then whether now, even if this page, there is a rose color, something different levels of rose colors are here, red colors and orange, and slightly when it comes here, it's orange. He's in a something. So all of us may not see like that. Some people sometimes may see there is no difference between these two things. Okay, on the level 6, they hardly may see. Here you can see the 987, but here, from here to here, all the things are considered as 6. So human eye can differentiate the color only to some extent. So that's why I say, even though we have millions of the colors, human eye may not be able to recognize them. And sometimes some animals may be stronger or weaker in the color recognition. So bigger subjects, but we have to consider, we need to have a basic understanding in the interaction design. Movement and the luminance. So, I mean, this is how do you read the name board of a moving bus? If it is too fast, obviously you can't. But if it's moving in some of the particular speed, then probably, I mean, it's not a hard thing. Anybody can easily read the name board of the bus. So the movement and I mean, we can't read many moving things, but at the short things, we may be able to quickly get it. What is this? Tell me whether this is a B or 13. B or 13. How many say this is a B? How many have said this is 13? Both. Yeah, so it depends on the whether it could become a B or it could become a 13. But how we decide whether it is a B or 13? Now, when you keep this visual symbol here, you just say ABC. Because you decide this is a B because of A and C that you recognize. So the context means here the surrounding. Here you say 13, the same thing, because you recognize this one as a 12, you recognize this one as a 14. So this context is the where you decide is 13. So that is the interesting way how things happen there. Okay. So this leads to what is known as an optical illusion. Very interesting things where the visual things can create an illusion. Illusion means what? It's like a magical thing, and I mean not the reality, and you believe this is that, but it is not the case. See, it's some kind of an illusion happens. So visual illusion, optical illusion, people say it's could happen. Now, for example, when you look at these two line segments, okay, which is shorter, which is longer, top one or below one? Top one indicates is a longer than the bottom one. Why? The main reason is this things which are connected to this line, and then it makes this a longer. So hope you may have seen this picture. Sometimes it's a very popular things that goes on the web and many places. Okay, two people in a one picture, but it depends on the way how you look at the picture. So the picture you may interpret in a different way, and you may get that one. Okay. My slides you can, I think it may be harder to understand here, but very interesting thing, if you looked at this one, if you keep looking at that one, see what will happen. This black and white strips. Keep looking at that and tell me what you will see there. Please look at only this one, the other thing, only this part. Any observation? You can type once you see.
Sometimes can see the capital letter M, and also sometimes can see a pattern like box.
So you can see some moving pattern, something like that. Is it that?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, that's what happens. I mean, that's because of this color arrangement, like here. It becomes the moving thing, and when you keep looking at something, so that illusion happens because of this arrangement of the visual arrangement of these two colors in that way. So people may think this is a kind of some invisible power is behind. No, it happens to be our eyes. So we can't trust our eyes. I mean, when we keep looking at the screen, sometimes we may see many things which is not really correct. So if you look at the video and the internet, you will see this lady is rotating in a way. So it's in this is a PDF one, you can't see. Now, this is another one very funny thing. There are two people in a one flower vase. So someone could say this is a flower vase, this is two people talk to each other. It depends on the way how you look at the picture and interpret. Okay. So all these things is what we call the optical illusion. So optical illusion could happen, and because of the human factors in the interaction design. So that understanding you really need to keep in mind when we design interaction and the interfaces. Okay, when we develop the interfaces for interactions. Another one. Can you read this paragraph? I hope this not the first time you are reading. You may have seen this fun story. Not difficult, I think anyone can read, but how many spelling mistakes are there? If you carefully looked at the thing, most of the words have mistakes, but yes, you are correct. But spelling doesn't make sense in other words because you can still read and understand. Okay, so then there isn't a relationship between the way we read the spelling. Okay, and that's is also important. It goes in a two different ways. Sometimes the mistakes we don't see. You may have to use a spell checker or Grammarly or some other things to get it. I mean, still you don't know that there is a mistake. That happens naturally. And people don't take it very seriously. So important thing, people can read and even there. So this is the kind of the thing. So because it happens because of way we scan the letters by eyes, okay. Visual pattern perceived, okay. Decoding the internal representation of the language, okay. Interpreted using the knowledge of the syntax, semantics, and pragmatics. So that is the how it works. And the most of the time we like black letters on a white space. Why? For reading. Any reason for that? When they are together, natural to create an illusion as you see on the previous one. But here, that contrast help us to easily recognize the words and the letters and read them. Okay. Hearing. This is what I told you earlier. Okay. I mean, how years work. I think I don't want to go for this biology lesson. Some of you may have heard how the ear. It's a component, and even when you say sound, there are three attributes. We call the pitch, loudness, timbre, and that's why all the musical instruments have a different sounds, not the same sound. Same pitch, same loudness, same timbre. You differentiate violin and the guitar. So sound waves is something that we see. Hope you have heard this thing, don't you? Humans can't hear some sound, but Dogs can. Have you heard something called the dog whistle? Okay, that's good enough for the dogs to start barking. So a lot of sounds in our environment we can't hear, but they can hear. The main thing, this frequency, range, okay, the frequency range, we can hear only within this frequency range. Outside, that we cannot. But the different animals can hear the different things from outside. Anyone willing to say what is this cocktail party phenomenon? Have you ever heard something called that? What is this cocktail party phenomenon? Have you ever heard? It is a party, definitely, but most of these parties, cocktail parties, people don't sit, they stand, they move around, and they it's something like that. And the very noisy parties are cocktail parties because people keep on talking, moving from one place to another, and they laugh and they are. So this kind of a cocktail party, if you have some experience, you may. But how this sound works? Suppose in such a noisy environment, someone say your name, what will happen? Suddenly, your attention goes to it. Suddenly, your attention goes to it. Even in a noisy environment, when there is lots of sound, if your name is in a very sensitive sound tag. When someone says, I mean, suppose another person has your name and someone else calls for that person, naturally your attention goes to it, don't you? This is a kind of where the sound tags are attached to us, and that requires our attention for it. Okay, so this cocktail party phenomenon, this is a very noisy place. Someone call your name and your attention goes for it. Same with the, I mean, the dogs, cats, and the other things at the home. When they are trained for some sound tags. So if you call their name, I mean, why they come, and do they understand their name? Do they know that their name? No. They are tagged with some words, and for those words, they are very sensitive. So interpreting the sound. Uses of the non-speech sound, they're very important for the other thing. Like to hear your thing, I mean, your experience on this one. Attention, track the user's attention to a critical situation or to the end of a process. You have a non-speech sound. I mean, notice the word. It's a kind of a sound which you get the attention. A kind of a bell. Bell is always something which people use to get the attention. And the ringtone, the phone, also those things get our attention to it. And if you put a ringtone in your phone, you are attached to that one. If someone else has the same ringtone, a problematic. Your attention goes to that. I hope you have some similar experience. So if time permits, why don't you take these examples, if you can post on the discussion forum, you get your participation points into that one, okay? Status information. What is the status information? Continuous background sounds can be used to convey status information. For example, monitoring the progress of a process without need for a visual attention. Do you have any experience? Have you seen this kind of a thing happens in any system? Anyone? Have seen? Have some experience on that? Status information? Hmm? Have you seen a status information? How do you, I mean, if some operation is going on and your visual attention is not for that, but then if you can get that information updated, okay. I mean, there is an operation people can activate even in Windows, not by default. When you are copying in a file, okay, you can put some sort of a sound tag for that. So it's a works on until the copy file operation completed. And visual sound thing, when the mouse, appearance of a mouse also change from time to time. That also shows what? Status. If something is working behind and if the system is busy. Okay. So what you see there? Status information. Confirmation. Confirmation means when something is done. Now, if you have done something, let's say deleting a file, for example, so some sound it, at the end, a bell or a small different sound may come. So that indicates, okay, the operation is finished. Navigation sound. Okay, even a clicking and a hyperlink click sound could be a link. And I like to ask you to use this discussion forums to put some examples for such a thing. Okay, with different sounds. So that helped the people, the visual interaction very attractive, and that's helped the lots of people to get their attention. Small techniques, so many techniques I only listed for. I like to hear your what you know from the, at least in the discussion forum, if you can put. What is this? I said earlier, touch. Now it has become a very common thing. I mean, lots of people, not like those days, we use a mouse. Mouse is gone now, touch is comes. People move the finger. We can say this is a kind of a direct interaction where you keep the finger into that part. Yeah. And you don't need a mouse. It's a very powerful, even the present operating systems allow touch-based interfaces. Okay. Screens are touch-based, like in a mobile smartphone. This is the way I told you that the auditory is faster than the visual. You see that? I think the pain is, I was wrong there. Pain is 700 milliseconds. I think it was, it's more fast. No, it's I'm wrong. I think it's the visual is 200 milliseconds, reaction time, auditory 115, but the pain is more than that. So even if you touch the hot thing, what will happen? Already it is damaged when you see that has happened. Okay, that's what it says in other words. Reaction time plus movement time. Very important thing you need to understand sometimes. Several past paper questions I remember it's based on this. What is this? Have you ever heard someone? Fitts law in visual design. What comes to your mind when you see this? They define the parameters. Can someone say, what is this formula? How it works? MT stands for the movement time. A is a constant. Then B log ds plus 1. D means distance. S means size. Movement time means it's the movement time of a cursor. Let's assume the cursor from one place to another place. Any idea how this formula works? Think about the different values for D and S. When something is very close, what is the value of D? When something is very close, what is the value of D? D becomes
Less value.
0. Yes. D becomes a very small. Yes. If a D is in a small, the D becomes 0. When 0 divided by S means what? 0. But then log 1. Log 1 means, what is the value of a log 1? Can
0.
you remember? Log 1 is
0.
0, yes. And the log 1 is 0 means movement time is A. A means constant. So that is how it works. I mean, this is when, I mean, think about a movement time of the cursor point on the screen from one place to another place, and you are trying to move to an object and which is in a close so far is there. But by the way, size of the target, can S be 0?
No.
Why you say no? If S is 0, then you can't see. It becomes very small. But if the S is 0, then D divided by 0 means what becomes infinity. It's not a correct one. So this formula, it's a very useful formula to interpret the movement time of the cursor point. You can use this one to describe time taken. You can compare the time taken. It's there. But very interestingly, this says at the end, target as large as possible, distance as small as possible. Then only what happened? Then only the movement time becomes kind of a thing which is fixed In other words, I mean, we can't say zero. Movement time has a fixed. Okay, so that's the fifth law in the visual design. Very, very important thing that you really need to keep in mind. Okay, I'll move to the other part, human memory. Have you heard these three things? Yes or no?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Sensory memory, short-term memory, long-term memory. Everyone has that. Whether we can't see, but we have it. So if you carefully look at lots of things we hear, even right now, but they never go to the short-term memory if we don't get the attention. So attention is something that takes from the sensory memory, okay, to the short-term memory. Sensory memory is a kind of a buffer, in other words. But again, short-term memory decays and it goes away, unless if you rehearse it. Now, if I ask a question, can you remember what did you have for the yesterday, Friday, lunch? And I hope most of the people here will tell. But if I ask the question, can you remember what did you have it for the last Friday, not yesterday, last Friday? Answer will be very limited. So sensory memory to the attention, sensory memory, attention, is something that takes the things. Now, suppose if it wasn't a party, this assume that you attended. These days, going for the parties is not allowed, illegal, but those other days we went, or even if you think about it before the corona, if you went for had a good lunch at some place, if you trace back, you can remember, you can tell what did you have at that day, at that place. So why? It remains in your mind. It is attached with some other things, and attention has resulted there. And if you speak on the same thing several times, okay, whenever we went to that big hotel, we had this fun, and you may have a big story to say. And if you have tell that story to the several people, then for the lifetime, it becomes a part of your memory. So this is the way how things remains in the mind. Okay. If these actions are not in action, then what is in the memory goes away. Now here, if you looked at memory propagation, okay, this is we call memory propagation, how it works, it shows, okay, from the sensory things. So attention is the one that goes from sensory to the short-term memory. Lots of things comes. Even right now we hear lots of things, but we are not sensitive for them. Then from there to the short term to the long term. So everything goes off. That's if you don't do it. So when we talked about the sensory memory, there are iconic memory, echoic memory, haptic memory. So these things create some sort of a simulation in our ears, so eyes. Even after, once it's physically removed, it will remain, that sensation we call it will remain. There was a nice thing called the Sparker trail and the stereo sound. Suppose if you are in a, let's say another party with a big noise and the sound, and you decided to come out from that place outside, but you may still feel that you are hearing that thing. That is because of this sensation or feeling that you got continuously to the series of sounds, then you can't get away. It comes back again and again, continuously over it. Any question? You have it. I mean, I'll give the very rough explanation, but anything that you wanted to ask? What are the memory propagation techniques? Okay. Now, things like now attention. Okay, I said a high level way is an attention. So within the attention, there may be so many things that will take the attention. Okay, and even the study now, I hope yeah, it's a scratch pad like that. Now, if I say sound, even some sounds have a different sensation, and attention could be get it kind of suddenly. I mean, suppose if there was a sudden high volume, that become a kind of a thing people get attention for it. So I'm talking about the, as you asked, what are the techniques that may affect for this attention. So different techniques. So memory functions that may happen. The rehearsal, it's a study. I mean, some people study in the different ways. The rehearsal people do. I mean, if I tell you the very nice small little example, I guess many of you may remember this Upul ඊළඟ නැවෙන් ගිහින් ධම්මෙ නිදිත බලාවරෙන්. I mean, this is a very, kids are saying, when we were children, we also said the same thing. What does it mean? That is in a kind of a small sentence. People can keep it in mind in a very easily, but the first letter is attached to the direction. Upul, utura. There's an oath. Okay, so like that. I mean, in Tamil, I think there may be different things, and even in the chemistry, when the people learn chemistry, I remember so many techniques people. So the memory techniques, okay, propagation techniques to take it into long-term memory. Some of the things still, some of the things we cannot forget. They will remain in our mind. So those techniques are very, very important, and we really need to keep it in mind. I mean, creatively, if we want to design the interaction design, those techniques are very, very getting attention from the people. Short-term memory, as it said, scratch pad, always read and easily retrieve, quickly and easily lost. Now, what is this one? This that one. 7 plus 2. What does it mean? Yeah, you're correct. At a time, a person can keep it mind 5 to 9. More than that, it's really hard and it becomes impossible. There may be special people, but a normal person can manage 5 to 9 items. That's why plus or minus 2. So menu system should not have more than 9 at all. Recommended is 5 because the different people may have a different memory. So that's why people will have it this limited capacity. So short-term memory formula is there. What is this? Can you keep it mind this letter? Number? Obviously difficult. But this one? Easy. How? Separation pattern. So the pattern help the people to keep something very easily. What is this? Do you see any pattern in this sentence? If you see the pattern, just type it. Yes, you are correct. Cat ran up the tree. So if you make a small arrangement, okay, change up the letters. If you shift one letter, you take the T here and push the C to there, and every letter that's shifting, then the cat ran up the tree. So little arrangement can create a different ways to attract the people. So what is the lesson that you can learn for that from that for interaction design? What is the lesson? I'm happy to hear. Or just type it there. So when we are designing interaction, we always try to create an interaction that make people easy to understand and that create some memorable, easy to memorize the people. Now, most of the time, what happens, people, problem, they do the first time, even we can train the people how to do. But if you ask the same person to repeat again, what is the biggest issue? They can't remember. So even maybe also face the same problem. You can't find the where this is possible through under which menu item or even under the menu sub-menu item. Finding them again becomes harder. when especially people do lots of things. So if a particular important operation, if a person can see in a small pattern, they can quickly do that one again, or repeat, they can repeat that one easily. So this is the most important lesson that we have to learn. When interaction design is done, create patterns, good patterns of interaction, where people can repeat, can easily keep in mind, and can do the work again. Any question? Anything that you like to ask on that? What can you say about the long-term memory? How many of you can remember your first day in the school? Definitely more than 20 years ago, I guess, for all of you. Between 15 and 20 years ago. Can you remember? Raise your hand if you can remember. Only one. Two. I think hope, I mean, if you can't remember that it's such an important day in the life, I mean, it's a memorable day. Sometimes it's natural, it's when you are in a very young age, you may not remember, but there may be very special days in everyone's life. It will remain forever. Especially when something is emotionally touched within a particular person, it becomes a part of a long term. And most of these long-term techniques are, we call episodic and the semantic. Episodic means story. It's like in a story. Hope everybody remember Nariya Sake Jukela. You never want to memorize, it's a very episodic. Semantic is a structured one. So the main two techniques comes with the long-term memory with that. However, when something in the long-term memory, most of the time it will remain. But if you never memorize it, if you never talked about that one, or maybe, then what will happen? Gradually, it decays. Decay is something that goes off, and one day you say, I can't remember. So this is what we really need to know. So always people keep this very important incidents. They remain in a long run in their memory. Okay, that's also a very important thing that we really need to consider for the interaction design. Human factors, we were talking about what? Human factors. So if there is something, if you want to give it a pattern, if they want to give it their attention, you want to make it based on a similarity, those are the advantages. Okay, long-term memory, semantic memory, model structures. There is a kind of a classification, knowing how, knowing what, general knowledge, personal recollections. Okay, these are the things. Okay, long-term memory. I mean, the knowing how to do something. You may not do it every day, but yeah. Declarative memories are the semantics. So if you go for a trip, have some experience, these are the memorable thing in the life. People will have it and that will remain forever. Some of the things. You can have a structures, it's like a concept map where you connect and that will help you to interpret several different things. So even this simple structures will help the people to understand. That's the main thing that need to take it into the mind. And sometimes we were thinking about the memory. It's like a if then else rule. Okay, we call the production. Okay, a procedural knowledge is like that. So most of the thing people define these rules are like this. If dog is wagging the tail, then the pet dog. So that's a kind of a rules. This comes with the knowledge declaration format. Storage information, rehearsal, total time hypothesis, distribution of the practice effect, structure, meaning, and familiarity. Hope you can get, and I have described these things in detail in the recorded one. Decay, interference, forgetting the, what's that means? What do you mean by forgetting? You can't remember. So if initially it may be attractive, but if you don't redo the rehearsal, if you never try back and if you never work with that, it goes off your mind. Sometimes it may be permanently may goes off due to some other unexpected problem, diseases, accidents. There may be cases like that. Retrieval, recall and recognition is what we call recall based on the some categories, some information people remember. Recognition is in another way. Even it triggers people. Now MCQ is a different question. Once you see the answer, you see, oh, this is what. But if you ask people to write the answer, that is a recall. Then again, the thinking process in the recall and the recognition are different. Okay? So same theory is important for the interaction design. Now, if I take a simple example, DOS prompt and the graphical user interface. In a DOS prompt or the command line interface, CMD we call, people need to recall the command. So recalling becomes easier if the commands have a meaningful terms. In a menu structure, people don't want it to recall. That's the depends on the recognition. So people need to be very creative, innovative when developing those things to get the user's attention for that one. Otherwise, there will be a dissatisfaction. Any question up to now? Okay, I got a question. So it's a deduction and memory propagation technique. As we can deduce alternatives, remember the stuff like that. Yes, you are correct. I mean, he sent only the question to me. You will see the deductions later also. I have put it as in a technique, kind of memory propagation techniques. Yes, the subject is in fact is in a larger one. I just looked at from the interaction point of view, where you will be able to use this deduction as in a way to keep things in mind. Okay, most probably kind of even the experience also matters a lot in that case. Alternatives to remember stuff like that direction phase. Also semantic it's the further study of the meaning of perhaps, yes. Probably the meaning could be attached to that one. Even the tagging, you know that in the present day context, people tag many things and they tag within a keyword. So the keyword remembers everything and the people don't want to keep. But if the tag, when the tag comes, people knows that. And the tagging has become a very interesting semantic technique to place some sort of an indexing point, and the later people can use that one to combine them together and even the search. And that is sometimes based on the individual information. Yes. Thank you. I'm really happy to reply the questions here. Human thinking and the problem solving. You see the deduction. So it comes with the what is kind of a small knowledge rule. See this one? They may not be logically correct, but kind of a way of building. But if it is a logically correct, then it becomes a logical statement in their mind and easier to organize the things. But it is possible to happen this kind of a thing. Some people are babies, some babies cry. Does it mean some people cry? What is this sum? Inductive reasoning. I mean, you may remember I talk about the interaction design and the belief. Have you ever seen this picture for the kids? And you a kid also may know. Disney character, Dumbo. In other words, a flying elephant. If we say the elephant can fly, no one believes. But people like flying animals when they create the characters. Inductive reasoning is the generalized from the cases seen to cases unseen. Kind of these techniques also help not only keep the things in mind, but to also solve the problem. So abstract understanding of that is very important when we do the interaction design, inductive reasoning. Only prove false, not true. Okay. Theory of induction, I don't know whether if you have done mathematics, then you know that. If you prove something for the R number of items, and if you can prove the same thing for the R plus 1, then you can see this is true for the n number of items, finite number. So That is where people use induction as a technique to prove those things. Abductive reasoning. So see the man, see the sentence. Sam drives fast when drunken. If I see the Sam driving fast, assume drunken. So this is what happens to us the most of the time. Problem solving. Process of finding the solution to unfamiliar tasks using knowledge. I mean, whenever we want to do something in the interface, also the same thing. Whenever we have to do some challenging work, we try out many things. Through that interaction, we learn a lot. Okay. And theoretically, I mean, all the possibilities we may think, and we may select a path, and we wanted to find the shortest path to reach our goal. So this idea of the problem space theory, sometimes you may have heard, where every problem, there may be all the possibilities we describe as a problem space. Then the solution is through navigation of this problem space. And there may be different ways people can navigate to reach a particular target. Okay. It's something like this. When you have a menu items, okay, a menu system, there may be different ways something can be done. Some things you can do, but you cannot reach the goal. You can't do. It's becomes a dead end. Okay. So problem space are everything what people can do, but there may be some predefined set. Yeah, people will have to follow the goal, and there may be several paths in the problem space to reach the one goal. So people wanted to find the shortest path and also avoid the dead links when they navigate in the problem space. So have you ever heard this word, heuristic? Can someone say? What is the heuristic? Anyone have heard this word, heuristic? You Google it, you can find. It's a rule of a thumb. I mean, the people, when when we do a lot of things, we know the shortest technique to quickly get things done. Okay, that based on our experience, sometimes some of the things are very not 100% sure, but we know if you do that one, you can do that work very quickly. So based on the experience, based on the knowledge and guessing, people select the what we call intelligent heuristic sometimes to solve the problem. So kind of a thing where the people may think about. Yeah. So a very popular thing where the machine which cleans 2 rooms, dirty rooms, the vacuum cleaner. And all the possible problem space is drawn here. And the people will have to say, so kind of a thing the people can come out. Okay, that's the, I mean, think now almost time is over, so I'm going to stop the discussion for the today. We'll talk about the human errors using computers, but all these things I have recorded and now uploaded. When time permits, please go through. I'll use this discussion time to interact with you and also explain things in a more clear way. Okay. Any question before we wind up for the today's session? Okay, looks quite silent. So please go through the thing. You can listen to the explanation if you want. Otherwise, you can just manage with the slides with this explanation. Most important thing is to understand the concepts and apply them to solve the problem. So we'll stop the discussion for the today at this point, and let's meet it next week.